kind of a thread the past few days that the things we don't have to do can be an important part of who we are, who we become, and the life that we lead. And today's specifically going to be a filter on the idea that if all we do is what's asked of us, then we're not going to continue advancing forward. That high school is literally the last time in life when you can just follow the instructions handed to you and get pushed forward onto the next level, onto the next stage, into a better situation. Right? We think about during childhood education, we just go to school, we do what's asked of us, we hand in our work, we get grades, we get pushed on to middle school, do that for a few more years, do what's asked of us, as long as we do it past a certain bar of acceptability, get pushed onto high school, keep doing that to a certain level of acceptability, and then we get pushed out. Thereafter, whether it's in graduate school, which again, obviously people have to apply to, whether it's in, obviously, undergrad programs before that, which again, people have to apply to, whether it's something that in the professional career track of life that someone's doing, typically if they go and they show up and they follow the instructions, they don't actually get pushed to the next level unless they are proactively going after it, unless they're making a point of it, unless they're going out of their way to do it. Part of why it's so common for people in their 20s, in their early 30s, to get sort of an immediate interest, sort of seemingly blossoming out of nowhere, in personal development, in goal setting, in motivation, and these kind of techniques, strategies, and issues, is because they're starting to observe that they have already plateaued earlier in their career. That they've been doing the same thing, going to work, following the instructions, doing what they're supposed to do, but the time has become a blur of either extremely slow advancement or no advancement. It's not like where they just kept going to class, getting A's, and then therefore got pushed up to the next level. That if they're going to get a promotion internally, if they're going to get a significant raise, if they're going to find a better job or a better path in life, it's going to come from proactively going after it, making a point of it. And I think to understand why this is the case, because, naturally and maybe a little bit naively, but reasonably so, we occasionally get this mixed up metaphor that work is like a family, that they're looking out for our interests and so on, and that mechanically that's not really usually what's going on. There's a way of thinking about business I find very helpful from, as documented in the book called E-Myth. That's E as an entrepreneurial myth, not E like electronic email. But in E-Myth, it's described that a business can be thought of not as a building, not as a product to sell, but instead thinking of a business as a set of instructions. That as long as you can find people who will follow those instructions for the amount that they're able to pay for people who follow those instructions, then it's going to consistently turn money into more money at a rate that's fast enough or reliable enough to be worthwhile to have someone else feeding money into the front of it. Whether that has to do with upfront costs, whether it has to do with the cost of salaries and overhead and legal complications or whatever, it really comes down to it's a set of instructions that you can put money into one side of and get more money out the other side of. So people invest in businesses, is why people start businesses, is why people grow businesses. But because the business is fundamentally really a set of roles and instructions, so that people are interchangeable, so that they can fill in the role and make sure that things get done, part of what winds up happening is that when we show up at a place and we're given the instructions to do, the business is satisfied. That occasionally an enormous corporation may have some sort of internal career track, guidance, planning, HR people who seem like they're sort of kind of trying to be on your side, and to an element that's trying to account for possibility of retention of good talent. But quite often instead, as long as that role is being filled, it kind of doesn't really bother them that your life isn't moving forward or changing. Their need is set. Their need is met. They're getting what they want out of it at a rate that they're willing to pay for it. And as soon as you want more money or different responsibility, whatever, then they, may wish you the best of luck and encourage you to go find somewhere else because they need someone in the spot you're in following the instructions that you are there doing. And they're unlikely to push you out of that spot unless you are totally failing at it. So it really comes down to lots of people out there may have an opportunity where they are currently in a line of work where they are doing less than they are possibly capable of in terms of impact on others, in terms of advancement of their career skills, in terms of reach, in terms of compensation, in terms of benefits, in terms of whatever it might be, flexibility in terms of what they're looking for. But that change is not going to just happen by virtue of coming to work and doing what's asked of them, of following instructions, because the end result of those instructions is not to move that person forward. The end result of those instructions is to transform some smaller amount of money put into the front end of the business into more money on the back end of the business. Again, kind of model taken from E-Myth, and granted, there's other ways to explain it, but I think a very nice, simple, succinct way to look at how and why a business works the way it does. What it's doing when it means that we have a role to fill and a clear definition of here's our responsibilities. it's able to make a deal with us that we show up, we follow those instructions, we get paid what they say they'll pay us, and we go home. But again, what happens is people then do that for 4 to 6 years, like they did in high school, like they did in elementary or middle school, or like life had established this pattern to them, as though then it's just going to then drop them off into the next most useful spot. And quite often that's not what's happening. So that's all there is to today. Just this reminder that beyond high school, it's never enough to just be doing what's asked of us. That doing that's unlikely to propel us forward. It's unlikely to improve our situation, especially qualitatively as opposed to quantitatively. Again, it might incrementally ratchet us up some percentage of promotion a year, something of that effect in terms of raises or whatnot, ideally, and even then that doesn't even hold true. But that if we want to really have a shift in what we're doing, how we're doing, that has to come from us and how we make choices about using what limited time, energy, etc. we have, flexibility that we have to move ourselves forward. It's got to come from us. That's all for the day. Thanks as always for tuning in. Have another video for y'all tomorrow.